a woman named Sigríður sat at her kitchen table in Reykjavik on a Tuesday morning in 2847 and tried to remember her daughter's face. The photograph in her hand was 814 years old. It showed a young woman standing in a garden, laughing, holding a cat. The cat's name came back first, Kolfinna, then the garden, the old house in Akureyri, the one with the red door. But the face in the photograph, the face of the daughter she had raised and loved and buried, would not resolve into memory. Sigríður had lived for 847 years. Her daughter had been dead for 791 of them. And this morning, for the first time, she could not remember what her daughter's voice had sounded like. This is not science fiction. Or rather, it is not science fiction for much longer. In 2009, a team of researchers at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, studying a population of Ashkenazi centenarians, identified a cluster of genetic variants associated with exceptional longevity. Not lifestyle, not luck, but specific inherited differences in genes governing cell maintenance and metabolic regulation. In 2012, Shinya Yamanaka received the Nobel Prize for discovering that mature cells could be reprogrammed into pluripotent stem cells, effectively resetting their biological clocks. In 2020, a Harvard lab led by David Sinclair demonstrated that epigenetic reprogramming could restore youthful function to aged tissues in mice, reversing not just biomarkers, but actual functional decline. In 2023, researchers showed that clearing senescent cells, the zombie cells that accumulate with age and poison their neighbors, extended healthy lifespan in mice by 35%. For 100 years, aging had been treated as a fact of nature. Then, in a single generation, it became a disease, and diseases could be cured. The first-generation therapies arrived in the 2040s: senolytic drugs, telomere maintenance, targeted epigenetic resets. They did not make anyone immortal. They made people 90 who functioned like people 50. Then the second generation arrived, then the third. By 2100, the question had stopped being whether human lifespan could be extended. The question had become, how far? The answer, it turned out, was very far indeed. The wealthy went first, as the wealthy always do. A maintenance regimen in 2150 cost what a house had cost a century earlier. But the technology cheapened. It always does. By 2200, longevity maintenance was covered by most national health systems in the developed world. By 2300, it was a human right, enshrined in the UN Declaration on Biological Continuity. The average human lifespan that year was 412 years, and climbing. Children born in 2400 were told, by doctors who meant it, that they would likely never die of old age. Death itself had become optional, a thing that happened to the unlucky, the careless, the very old cohorts who had been born too soon. At first, it seemed like a miracle. The accumulated wisdom of centuries remained available. Great-great-grandparents attended weddings. Scientists worked on problems across 300-year timescales. Artists developed across millennia. A painter born in 2089, still working in 2847, had time to master styles her younger selves would have dismissed as impossible. The long life was, by every measure the early researchers had designed, a better life. Healthier. Wiser. More experienced, more capable. Here is the part that nobody had modeled. Because alongside the accumulated wisdom, something else was accumulating, the sheer weight of lived experience. The human brain, even upgraded, even maintained, even repaired, was not designed to hold a millennium. By 2600, neuroscientists had a name for it, the compression phenomenon. The brain, confronted with more memories than it could actively maintain, began to abstract, to compress, to summarize. A marriage that had lasted 150 years became, in memory, a single warm glow, a feeling of partnership without specific scenes, without voices, without the texture of individual days. A childhood home became a sketch, then a word, then a vague sense of origin. The brain was not failing. The brain was doing exactly what it had always done. It was keeping what it needed and releasing what it did not. The problem was that what the brain needed for a 1,000-year life was not the same thing the person living it needed. This is what Sigríður understood, sitting at her kitchen table in Reykjavik on a Tuesday morning in the year 2847, holding a photograph of her daughter and finding nothing behind the image but absence. She had not forgotten her daughter. She had compressed her. Somewhere in the architecture of her very old brain, her daughter still existed as a concept, as a warmth, as a category called firstborn. But the daughter herself, the specific person with the specific laugh and the specific way of tilting her head when she was thinking, had been abstracted into something that could no longer feel like a person at all. Sigríður had outlived not only her daughter's body, but her daughter's presence in her own mind. She had outlived the memory of having been a mother. The philosophers called it the ship of Theseus problem, accelerated. If every memory that made a person who they were had been replaced, not erased, but compressed beyond retrieval, was the person who remained still the same person? The answer, by 2847, was that nobody knew. Sigríður remembered that she had once been young. She remembered that she had once had a daughter. She remembered that she had once been afraid to die. But the young woman who had felt those things, who had lived inside those memories, was as lost to her now as any stranger dead for a millennium. Sigríður was not immortal. She was merely the latest version of someone who had once been mortal, someone who had inherited a name, a body, and a fading echo of a self that had not survived the journey. In the old world, the dead had stayed in the minds of the living for as long as the living could hold them, one generation, maybe two, maybe three if the stories were told well enough. Then the living joined the dead, and the cycle renewed. No one had ever had to carry a loss for 791 years. No one had ever had to feel that loss fade into abstraction while they themselves remained alive to notice. Sigríður had wanted more time with her daughter. She had been given more time. She had been given so much time that the daughter herself had dissolved in it. This is why she kept the photographs. This is why she wrote things down every morning, in longhand, on physical paper, the way her own grandmother had taught her 9 centuries earlier. Not because the technology could not preserve the data. The technology could preserve everything. But preservation was not the same as presence. The photograph could not bring back her daughter's face unless Sigríður herself could still feel it. And feeling, it turned out, was the part of memory that could not survive a millennium. Not intact, not complete. Feeling required a self that had been continuous with the moment being felt. And that self, the self who had held her daughter's hand in a garden in Akureyri in the summer of 2053, had been gone now for longer than most civilizations lasted. Some prices are only visible from very far away. Sigríður, who had wanted to live forever, had learned the shape of the cost. It was not that death had stopped. It was that death had merely changed its address. Her body would continue. Her name would continue. But the self who had loved, the self who had grieved, the self who had been afraid, that self had already died quietly in the long silence of compressed years. What remained was someone new. Someone who would also, eventually, be replaced. Forever, it turned out, was not a gift given to persons. Forever was a river, and persons were only the water passing through. Every tomorrow leaves an echo. Some echoes outlast the voices that made them. We will be listening for the next one. Next on Echoes of Tomorrow, the first child raised entirely by the dead.